My parents ruined every birthday with a crisis, and I found out it was all planned for years. What's the moment that made you hate your birthday? For me, it started when I turned 8. My parents threw a huge party with a bouncy house, pizza, and a Ninja Turtles cake. Then, right before we cut the cake, my mom pulled me into the hallway. Her eyes were wide, and her hands were shaking. She whispered, "We need everyone to go home right now. Daddy's very sick, and we have to go to the hospital." 5 minutes later, my friends were leaving, confused and quiet. The bouncy house guy let the air out, and it sagged to the ground with a hiss. I sat there in my party hat, holding a paper plate, watching my birthday disappear. Dad stayed in the hospital for 3 days, and they said it was a bad stomach infection. Nobody talked about the party again. The next day, my mom tossed the leftover cake into the trash without looking at me. I didn't ask why. I told myself I shouldn't be upset, and that became my normal. But the next year, it happened again. At 9, an hour before my sleepover, my mom said she had food poisoning and made me text everyone to cancel. At 10, during my bowling party, my parents got a call and said my grandma fell down the stairs. We left mid-game, and my friends just stood there with their shoes on. At 11, my dad bent over at the table and said his appendix was acting up. At 12, our car broke down on the way to the amusement park, and we turned back. By 13, I woke up on my birthday with a knot in my stomach. If the phone rang, my heart would jump. My friends stopped expecting invites, and some parents joked that my family was cursed. So I started asking for small birthdays to keep things safe. "Just cake at home," I'd say. No big plans. Even that didn't work. The power would go out before we lit candles. Someone would get hurt, and my parents would rush around like it was an emergency. When I turned 16, I didn't want to party at all. I just wanted dinner with my parents at a normal restaurant. We ordered appetizers, and for a minute it felt calm, like maybe this time was safe. Then my mom pressed a hand to her chest and said, "I think I'm having heart palpitations." She looked scared, so of course I panicked, and we left. After that, I started telling people I hated birthdays. At 17, I started therapy because I thought something was wrong with me. The therapist kept asking about my parents, and I kept defending them. "They can't help emergencies," I said. When I turned 18, I didn't tell my parents it was my birthday. I figured if they didn't know, nothing could get ruined. I went to school, acted normal, and planned to buy myself a coffee after class. That afternoon, I came home early and heard my mom in the kitchen laughing. She sounded light and happy, like a different person. I stopped in the hallway and listened. She was on the phone with my aunt saying, "Yeah, we're free for dinner tonight." Then she said, "Her birthday? Oh, we already took care of that this morning." I froze. Took care of what? I hadn't even seen them all day. My mom giggled and said, "We've been doing the fake emergency thing for years. Works like a charm." My dad chimed in, laughing too. "It's way easier than planning some big expensive party every year," he said. My stomach dropped. They kept going like it was a funny story. My mom said, "We just tell her hospital bills are expensive, so we can't do gifts. She never asks to see anything." I felt my face burn. All those ruined birthdays flashed in my head at once. I walked into the kitchen and said, "What are you talking about?" They both jumped. My mom ended the call fast and smiled like nothing happened. "Oh, hi," she said. I said, "You just called it a fake emergency." My dad stared at the floor. My mom tried to wave it off and said, "You misunderstood." I asked, "So none of it was real?" She sighed and said, "We were trying to protect you by keeping expectations low." My dad finally muttered, "We didn't want to spend a lot." I stood there shaking and said, "You made me scared of my own birthday." My mom reached for my arm and said, "Don't make this a big thing." I pulled away, walked to my room, and started packing. They followed me, talking over each other, telling me to calm down. I didn't answer. I grabbed my savings, zipped my bag, and put on my coat. When I went to the front door, they were still trying to explain. I looked at them and said, "You ruined 10 years of my life to save money." Then I opened the door and walked out. Now they're saying I'm cruel for leaving that day. Was I wrong?